episode of Trans Confessions, a very queer journey. I am your host, Jynx. I am glad to be here with you today. My co-host, Daphne, will not be on the show today. She has other engagements that she's going to be dealing with. All very exciting things, of course. So for today's show, it's one of the few times in my radio and podcasting career that I actually allow my guests to interact with me live, and I try my best to answer their questions as we go through the different topics of the day. It's always a good time. I've very rarely had too many issues in the past, although this is the first time I'm doing it post-transition, so very excited. Thank you everyone for joining me on this, the 22nd episode of my first season of Trans Confessions. I hope you enjoy. Some of the list of topics that we are going to be going through today are a little triggering. There's your warning. This is an adult-oriented show. I swear. The videos I play also swear. So, if you don't like swearing, if you don't like adult-oriented content, I would encourage you not to be watching them. That is the only warning I'm going to give. You have been warned. Viewer discretion is absolutely advised. Now, we stream on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter. Occasionally I'll bring up TikTok, usually in the background. For those folks who are watching on TikTok, I apologize, but you don't get to see all the cool interactions, you don't get to see all the questions, you don't get to see all my infographics or any videos that I bring up on the side. So if you do want to see those things, if you would like me to address your questions, then you're going to have to watch me on the other platforms. So you can follow me on my Facebook page, you can follow me on my Twitter page, you can follow me on my YouTube page. All of that can be found on my website, which I am now displaying on the bottom of my video. And then you can also get your Pride merch, jewelry, makeup cleaning kits, all kinds of fun stuff on that website as well. That website is cyberjynx.me. You can also go to cyberjynx.org, cyberjynx.com, cyberjynx.biz. They'll all take you to the same place. So, that being said, our show is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of every week. Now, sometimes I will announce I'm not going to do an episode, and that's fine too. But they're always going to start around 11:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, and that's going to change in the near future. Now, my last episode for this season, season 1, is going to be next Friday. After that, there won't be any more episodes throughout the summer because, well, I have a life, so, and I want to live it. I'm going to adjust my mic here. But the new season in season 2 will pick up the first Monday of August. So let's go ahead and get into what we're going to be discussing. So a couple of things we're going to be discussing, again, triggering. We're going to be looking at transphobia and transgender issues, mildly, and a lot of the things that the transphobes and the people who essentially don't like us or the fact that we exist are trying to make up or come up with. I'm going to go back to some videos from one of my personal favorite content creators on TikTok. They make wonderful content. They bring up amazing points of view, ones that require critical thought. So I'm going to start with their video. And you're going to see it, if you're watching me live on my other platforms, you'll see it pop up on the side. If you happen to be watching from TikTok, well, you're just going to have to listen in, so.
I was recently reminded, entirely against my will, by the way, that people actually believe in rapid onset gender dysphoria, and I decided to make that everyone's problem. Let's talk about the study, because it is just the perfect example of the cartoonish lengths that transphobes are willing to go to vilify trans people. First of all, it was an online survey that was circulated exclusively on anti-trans websites. It involved literally no trans people and encouraged the participants to share the study only with other eligible participants, which the survey defined, and I'm not kidding, as parents who believe their child experienced a rapid onset of gender dysphoria. And they did all of this specifically because they wanted to prove their theory that being trans is contagious. When I tell you that it always comes back to white supremacy, I mean it always comes back to white supremacy.
It really does. It really does. They make some very interesting points. Now, I found that survey, that study. And it's the stupidest thing I have ever had the disprivilege of reading. There is nothing medical or scientific in the basis of the questions that were in the survey that led to the study. It is exceedingly one sided. The entire thing was exceedingly one sided. They only looked for participants that were concerned parents that their child had a sudden onset of gender dysphoria. I am here to tell you, and the next video we are going to watch is here to show you that that is complete and utter bullshit. It is complete and utter bullshit. There's no such thing as the sudden onset of gender dysphoria. You either have it or you don't. And you have it always. It's not something new. It doesn't magically manifest at a specific point in your life. It's always there. Now, how we deal with gender dysphoria certainly evolves over time. I think as children, we definitely maintain a sense of innocence that maybe allows us to, I don't know, ignore what we're feeling because no one's really paying it much credence. Now, as we get older, I think maybe sure we can deal with things better than we did when we were children, but the pain associated with the dysphoria certainly is enhanced. So what they were saying in the video is absolutely ringing true. There are people out there who come up with any excuse they possibly can to demonize transgendered people, to try and convince others that transgendered people are contagious. We're not. We are not contagious. Me talking to your child or possibly teaching in your university is not going to make your children trans. They either are trans or they're not. Hello everyone on TikTok. Thank you for joining. I can see you. I definitely can see your questions and your comments. I will get to them as soon as I can. You're part of my awesome podcast show, so thanks for joining. If you don't want to be mentioned live on the air for my podcast, leave. Because I will definitely mention people who ask me good, solid questions today. And that goes for everyone who's watching on my other platforms as well. Foxy, I see you there watching on Twitch. Thank you so much for joining us. Glad to have you here. Again, if you have questions and stuff that you would like me to address on this particular episode, they will be displayed along with your name across the bottom of the screen, except for those folks on TikTok. Sorry. But going back to the previous video, they make very good points. This is becoming an ongoing, just ridiculous issue that I'm seeing with how certain types of people relate. Caffeine, welcome. Thank you. And it's becoming, well, it's getting to the point of just being egregious. It's just silly, some of the things that they come up with to demonize transgendered people. Now, I will say that there are those, like myself, trans feminine, who my goal is to pass. My goal is to one day not, to basically be stealth. I want to be stealth. Why? Because that's what's going to make me feel good. Now, is that the goal of all transgender people? No. No, it's not. There will come a point where if I went silent and nobody knew and I left my life behind, nobody's going to tell unless I actually went and told them. Now, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay vocal. I'm going to stay loud. But the demonization doesn't change. And if I think it's bad for me, or if a transmasculine person whose goal is to pass thinks it's bad for them, I can't imagine how bad it must be for non-binary or gender fluid folks. The hate would just be consistent. And it serves no purpose. It serves no purpose at all. The hate does not make people less trans. It didn't me. Didn't any of the transgender people I know or that I'm friends with. They're just as trans today, despite all the hate and the dumbass laws being passed by ignorant, stupid people, than they were the day before, or the day before that, or the day they were born. It makes no difference. Same thing with people who are gay, or lesbian, or bi, or pan, or asexual, or aromantic. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean they're going to stop doing it. It doesn't matter how violent or disgusting or awful you get when it comes to those things. They're still just going to continue to be themselves. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. There's never been anything wrong with that, and I don't know why people make such a huge fuss out of it. But much to the point that they were making in the video previously about these people go as transgendered people, and that there's no such thing as rapid onset of gender dysphoria. This next video from another great transgender creator and content maker explains this very, very well. How far back this actually goes, and much to the same point, also discusses how far back this societal normalization push begins. So, everyone take a look and you let me know what you think.
I'd like to tell you a story. This is one of the first memories that I have, if not the first memory. When I was in preschool, so about 3 or 4 years old, I was playing with one of my friends. And I remember we were playing with color blocks. And my friend turned to me and asked the simple question, "What's your favorite color?" And I remember I said with my whole heart, "My favorite color is pink." And this 3 or 4-year-old turned to me and said, "You can't like pink. That is a girl's color," in preschool. And so I quickly backpedaled and I said, oh, right, yeah, no, my favorite color is yellow. And my reasoning was because yellow is like the sun and yellow seems happy, so it's like a close second. And I told people for years later that yellow was my favorite color, to the point where I forgot that it wasn't. And that moment, when I was a toddler, was the moment that I learned that it was more important that I follow the rules than honor my actual experience in this body. That moment planted a seed that caused me to piece together my sense of self and my expression and my personality based on how the world was responding to me. It drove me to spend years disconnected from myself. And this is a simple story, but I think it is so important to share because there is this narrative going around that queer people are trying to indoctrinate children into queerness. But we already live in this cisnormative and heteronormative world that teaches young children that their worthiness of love is contingent on their ability to fall in line with these societal standards. It's like we are given a tiny, tiny box of crayons that we are allowed to draw from, when the world has infinite crayons. And the minute that people see us picking outside of our box, they smack the crayon out of our hand. And that is manipulation. That is indoctrination. Educating children about queerness is educating children about themselves. It's showing them that there are so many ways to exist in this world. It teaches them that they are valid so that they do not become disconnected from their truth. I wish people could see this, but it would require them to see themselves. So I'm gonna ask you right now, what really is your favorite color? Mine is pink, and even though I spent years saying otherwise, it always has been. I love you.
Again, one of my favorite content creators as well. My favorite color is sky blue. Always has been. I would say my second favorite color is pink. But sky blue is, in fact, and always was, my favorite color. So I guess I didn't get harassed too much when I was younger about having my favorite color being sky blue. But here's a funny factoid most people don't know. Pink was a very masculine color all the way up to the 1920s. It was quite common for men in power to wear pink. The color pink was used in military uniforms all the way up through the late 1800s. Just look at the old British uniforms. The hotter the pink in the uniform, usually the more elite the forces they were. I didn't call them redcoats for nothing. Pink has always been historically a masculine color. Blue was always a soft color and therefore was considered for a very long time very feminine. Little girls, when they were baptized in the church, wore blue gowns. Boys wore white or pink gowns. So, as far as colors or the gendering of just random things that we work with or deal with every single day, all of it is just human nonsense. It's just human nonsense. That's how we live. It's not uncommon at all to gender just random things that we have around in our lives. And it's not necessary. We don't have to gender these things. And we don't have to admonish children specifically because the boy's favorite color might be red or pink, or because a girl's favorite color might be blue or black or green. They're just colors, people. They're just colors. We don't have to gender anything. Now, someone did make a joke that I actually did laugh at, and it involved gender nonconforming or gender non-binary people when dealing with Latin-based languages where the entire language is gendered. I mean, Spanish and French both are very gendered languages. You change the terms based on the gender of the person you're referring to. So I can see that as probably being quite irritating. Although, could also work the other way. So to all of my non-gender and gender non-conforming friends out there, make them change their verbiage every single time your gender changes or fluidly moves from one side to the other. That can be fun too. So, again, this kind of goes back to that weird, discussion previously where you've got, and they're not necessarily conservatives. I don't always blame conservatives because it's not always conservatives that are out there making these ridiculous statements or claims. Sometimes it's just weirdos that are just looking for a reason to be upset. That's all it really is. They're just people who are upset. And you're not going to change their mind by being mean to them. Although sometimes maybe that's what they need. I don't know. But this previous video shows that gender dysphoria and gender nonconformance is not something that just magically happens. It goes back quite a ways. From our formative years, sometimes as early as 3 or 4 years old, most people understand what their real gender is. And it does not always align with the organs that they were assigned when they were born. Or in cases like mine, intersex people's, where the doctors specifically choose which organs you're going to have. And, well, by your brain's anatomy, the wrong ones in a lot of cases. Gender dysphoria is always there. Some people are just better at hiding it. There are trans people today who exist, who are probably in their 60s, 70s, or 80s, who've refused to ever recognize and see who they really were, and they'll probably die that way. Doesn't mean they're any less trans. They're still trans. And that's just how it is. And, that's okay. That's absolutely okay. So we got a comment that comes in from Caffeine is My Drug. It says, my preschooler wants his hair long, like Emma's. Yeah, like Emma's hair is an interesting thing at his school. My 2 kids are actually the white minority, and the kids are always touching each other's hair because they're all so different. Well, that's great, Caffeine. If your preschooler wants long hair, there's no reason why you should not let your preschooler have long hair. It's not going to affect their ability to learn. At least I don't think so. It's not going to cause any new issues that I'd be aware of. But imagine the happiness it would give your preschooler if you let them have long hair. Let's see, on TikTok, Undead says they were forced to be a girl. That's not uncommon either. It's very, very common for parents or society in general to force a gender. because it makes them comfortable. And we often do this at the sacrifice of our children's happiness because we're doing it for our own. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair at all. Now, I joined the military. In my military service, I had to have short hair. So when I finally admitted what I am to myself, most importantly, I was at a bit of a disadvantage. I wanted long hair. It's very hard to go from a military crew cut to, well, this in any reasonable amount of time. But doesn't mean it's undoable. So let's see here. Foxy Ray said that their 8-year-old's favorite color is pink, but they say blue around their dad because he's not okay with his child being gender fluid. Foxy, I am really sorry to hear that. I am very sorry to hear that, and I know that must make you feel awful. There's no easy way. There's no easy way to get around that, Foxy. There's not. That is your husband, but I want you to understand this. You have just as much say as your husband. And although your husband may not feel comfortable with or not like the fact that his child is gender fluid, it's not going to change the fact that his child is gender fluid. I would encourage your child to be truthful about their favorite color, even around their dad. Because it's never going to get better for your child or you if everyone continues to live a lie. Elaine complimented my eyeshadow. Thank you, Elaine. Oh, I love to race your hair. Your son's hair is gorgeous. 22 inches. Oh my. I am jealous. That would be amazing. Caffeine goes on to say, it's just funny sometimes walking in there and seeing one kid literally petting our 20-month-old's head because their hair is soft, lighter, or different. Well, of course. Children are obviously very curious about each other. That is the nature of humanity, Caffeine. And yes, it's funny. It's also adorable. So I have children of color. Biologically, no, they're not mine, but they're still mine. And yes, my daughter is white. She's like me. And yes, they're both fascinated. Like, ooh, your hair is different. Everything is different. I mean, and yes, my daughter's asked, why are my brothers darker than me? It's a difficult conversation, but it's one that ultimately we're all going to have. So it happens. Basically meaning gender, in a sense, is meaningless. It is meaningless, folks. It's not that big of a deal. We do not have to harp on it as much as we all try to all of the time. It's silliness. We gender so many things, and because we gender these things almost religiously, it is what allows a lot of these zealots, these political zealots, and I'm not even going to call them religious zealots because oftentimes they're not really all that religious at all. They're just elitists. They're elitists that want to push some kind of control, some kind of agenda on people they believe are lesser than themselves. When the trolls come into my lives and they say stupid things, that's what these people are. They are elitists. They are elitists who want to push their agenda on someone else because they think they're better than you. Cheryl asked what my MOS was in the military. I actually had several MOSs for the United States Army, and then I was previous United States Air Force before that. So my primary MOSs were all 15 series MOSs, so aviation. I was also a 35 Bravo, a 25 Delta, a 17 Charlie. So I had quite a few jobs. And then when I was Air Force, I was a 2 Alpha, 7-1 Bravo. Okay, so Foxy Ray corrected me that that's not her husband. That's just her child's father. My apologies. But yeah, I can certainly understand that. It's, well, it's just awful. I'm not going to lie. It's awful. I'm sorry you have to go through that. So I'll get one more comment in before we move on to our next video segment. Purple did say, yes, open minds to learn is wonderful. And yes, it is a progressive thing. But progressive minus any kind of political ideology. To be progressive is to be open-minded, to understand other people's points of view, even if you don't agree with them. Understanding them, allowing them to continue is critical. It's how we advance as a race of people. It's how we advance as a society of people. These things don't work until we do. Caffeine stated the race parent thing is going to get very interesting in the next decade or so with so much IVF and surrogacy going on, particularly with same-sex couples. You are absolutely correct, Caffeine. I think that's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. I think it's a shocking, wonderful, exceptionally gorgeous wake-up call for everyone, because there's nothing more satisfying in my eyes to watch a white couple have a black child. I think it's wonderful. Call me B said, what is happening? Well, you're live on my show, my video podcast show called Trans Confessions. Thank you for joining us. If you have questions, I will do my best to get to them. I apologize for those folks on TikTok. Your stuff scrolls up really fast and I can't see it, and you can't see the interactions that are going on our video, but thank you for joining us anyway. Now on to our next video segment. So this is another content creator from the LGBTQIA plus community that puts great information, lots of research into what they're putting out there. Give them a follow if you have an opportunity, because they do bring up wonderful points. Again, these are laws that I'm looking into, and ultimately, when we hear these people besmirch the transgendered community, they do so in the name of protecting their children. I find that fascinating that they always call for protecting their children, and then you see things like this. So give it a listen.
What's up, fuckers? It's tea time. Today we're going to discuss HB 233. The original draft of this bill basically legalized, but only for straight people, just like God intended. But only as long as you married the child prior to the abuse. This is very on brand for Tennessee, since 3 10-year-olds were married to men in their 30s there in 2001. The predators are throwing on the blue suede shoes and stalking in Memphis. Now, Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn has been quite vocal about how she feels Ketanji Brown Jackson has been too soft on. I never saw the same energy over this bill, though. She never makes any fucking sense. I'm sure it's due to the chlorofluorocarbons that used to be in Aquanet hairspray. Pretty sure they ate a hole in her brain like they did the ozone layer. Now, people like Marsha screech they want to protect children, but they spend all their time hating gays. Between 2000 and 2015, before gay marriage was legal, at least 200,000 minors were legally married in the U.S. And between 2000 and 2018, almost 10,000 children were married off in Tennessee. It wasn't until 2018 Tennessee Governor Bill Haslam signed a law banning marriage for anyone under 17, thanks to 2 Democrats sponsoring the original measure that led to that. It's also worth mentioning that only 6 states currently ban underage marriages, and they're all blue states, Marsha. But once again, your hate for gays was putting your kids in danger. Tom Leatherwood, he's the one responsible for this bill. He's a professional Girl Scout. He doesn't sell cookies, but he has a wide range of assorted pocket candies free of charge upon entry in the van. He strikes me as someone who's well versed in the prices of girls' bathing suits in a Penny's catalog. Sticky pages. Now, Tom's last name says leather, but the skin's giving me silicone. Unless he just took advice from Atticus Fitch and he's trying to see another point of view by climbing into their skin and walking around in it. Wait, did Republicans ban To Kill a Mockingbird? I think so. But what I do know for sure is that Tom here tried to ban the minimum age requirement for marriage in Tennessee because, like his muscles, the bill had no clear definition. The kitty diddlers think their marriages are tainted because gays can get married. The bill creates a new marriage system for straight people. It's a way to delegitimize gay marriage and offer protections to officials who deny LGBT people marriage licenses. Tom wants to give people an alternative form of marriage for those who have a conscientious objection to the current pathway to marriage. It establishes common law marriage between a man and a woman. In other words, the fragile homophobes get a separate class of marriage. And apparently removing the age requirement for marriage was needed for that. Just remember, it was the backlash from Democrats that led to the age requirement being added back to the bill. Now, I want everybody to have a great fucking day unless you hate others more than you love children.
So there was a couple of words that were bleeped out in that video that, and I know why, because the platform that the video was made on, which was TikTok, does not allow the words to be said in particular context, or your video gets taken down, or it just, gets shadow banned. I personally am not afraid to say those words. The words that were blocked out were child predators and pedophilia. So I find it fascinating, absolutely fascinating, that you've got a law in a state like Tennessee that was only enacted in 2018 that put a minimum age limit on child marriage. Because prior to that, any sexual assault that you put against a child was basically decriminalized in states like that, so long as you married that child first. Gross. Gross. The numbers, and I went and looked up the numbers that they were talking about, and although they evened them out to make them more round, they were nearly dead on. Between 2000 and 2017, 10,000 children under the age of freaking 17 were married off to people in their 30s or 40s. So when I listen to a lot of people who would fall on the conservative side of things bitch and moan about how transgendered people are ruining their children's lives and we need to stop trans people to protect these children, what are you doing to protect these children from all the straight people? And now you've got a new law that just got passed trying to remove the age restriction on marriage. And they did it under the guise of creating a different marriage licensing and certification system in the state of Tennessee specifically for straight couples. So allowing common law marriages to be codified in Tennessee state law between a man and a woman only, But for some reason, you had to add verbiage into that bill that would remove the protections for children. So basically all of the straight child diddlers were very angry that they couldn't do it, so they needed to have a special law to remove that stuff and codify their straightness. Yeah, because it's all about the children, right? That's what this is all about, right? Protecting the children? Well, it doesn't really seem that way. It doesn't seem that way today. Now, I'm not a giant fan of the lefties either because they can make some pretty stupid statements and they do just as much gross stuff as the people on the right side of the platform do as well. There are child predators on both sides. Let's not, sugarcoat this even the least bit. There are child predators pretty much everywhere, but still, going out there and then saying that my existence is invalid or any trans person's existence is invalid because it's dangerous to children, meanwhile you're passing laws allowing children as young as 9 to be married to a 46-year-old, get the fuck out of here with that shit. Get out of here with that shit. Don't come at me with your nonsense about how I'm dangerous to children. And you've got states like Tennessee that want to basically remove the age restrictions because there's 45-year-old men that want to diddle a 9-year-old. No. The answer is just plain fucking no. Now, I congratulate the Democrats in Tennessee who fought to make sure that that age restriction wasn't removed. However, there is a brand new set of marriage licensing requirements for straight people only, of course, because God forbid if the people who are gay could have marriages just like you and me, right? No. It's all absolute nonsense. It's complete and utter nonsense. Now, once again, I want to make sure that people know that I do stream this live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 11:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. And we stream on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, and evidently TikTok as well, although TikTok's kind of like in limp mode. To find out where those things are, visit my website. If you go to cyberjynx.me, there's a little link on there called social media. All of my social media profiles are linked there, so you can follow me on Facebook, you can follow me on Twitch, you can follow me on YouTube, and you can follow me on Twitter, as well as Instagram. TikTok's on there, I believe. Reddit, although Reddit's more of a informational because I don't know, Reddit's weird. So let's go into our next topic, or continue on this one, I should say. It's just weird, folks. It really is. So, like, I got a troll here. This old helmet, strap on, spelled backwards, is no parts. How delightful. Like, why do any of us care? Foxy Ray makes a statement. Things that happen in this country make her very sad. And I'm assuming your gender. I apologize, Foxy. Can't wait to move to Canada. Well, I'm here to tell you out of experience, it ain't any better in Canada. I'm sorry. But good luck with your move. Good luck. Let's see here. Foxy goes on to say, my gay bestie lives in Tennessee. I did not know that they can't marry their partner there. That breaks my heart. Well, no, they can marry. Gay marriage is acceptable in Tennessee only very recently, but it was accepted under the old system of marriage, which now has been essentially invalidated by the new. So gay couples cannot be common law married in Tennessee. They do have to go to a JP, or they have to have some kind of officiating ceremony and then have it signed off by the state. So yes, they can marry in Tennessee. They just can't be common law. Now, that being said, there's a couple other things that are out there I really want to drive home, and I do apologize again to the folks who are on TikTok. They cannot see this. And then obviously the folks who are listening on my podcast on Spotify or Google or Apple can't see it either. So hopefully you get the gist of what they're saying. Now, this next video is a little disturbing because this is actually a elected GOP candidate and office holder who was accused of these things. So we're going to go into this one next.
So this far-right, pro-life Christian lunatic Republican, who was big in the party, by the way, was just given 12 years for child porn. And he had admitted his favorite was essay of babies. Babies. Is that why you want kids to not be aborted? So that you can do whatever? I don't even, you can't even think about it, let alone they all vote for each other. The GOP, they're on one page, and that page includes that. So if you vote for one, you're supporting that mentality. And
now, I don't necessarily agree with that last statement. There are good people who are in the GOP. Just like there's good people in the Democratic Party. There are good people everywhere, just like there are bad people everywhere. The issues I take with both of those political parties, the Democrats and the GOP Republicans, is that it's always a bid for power. That's all they want. They make laws and elect their friends solely to give themselves more power. But this is especially egregious. This is disgusting. You have a very, very right-wing, Christian, conservative, elected, office-holding official who was just arrested and thankfully sentenced to 12 years in prison for a rather large innocent images, innocent videos collection, specializing in the essay of babies. Babies. No. The answer is just no. Gross. I will never understand how someone can do that. I will not pretend to understand what might be going through someone's head that does those things. It's not my place. What I do know is I wouldn't want someone doing that to my children. Absolutely not. And this is exactly the same person who stood on a pulpit at an evangelical church and decreed that gay people, more specifically transgendered people, were the decay of society and that we were going to end the world. Hypocrisy? Much? I think so. How is it that my existence is the decay of society and the end of the world as we know it, and you are over there diddling babies? No. No. So whenever I have idiots and trolls, and again, I point out the fact that most of these people do not have an IQ that above a potato, come into my lives, come into my Twitch streams, come into my YouTube streams, my TikTok streams, whatever, or here more recently, find me on my website and blow up my email and phone number with their disgusting, awful display of stupidity. I don't take them seriously. I can't. I cannot take anybody seriously that claims that transgender people are the plague and decay of society. Not when you've got people like that, especially ones in elected office who are out there diddling kids. No, there's no way I can take you seriously. I just can't. Their entire argument is invalid at that point. And just no. The answer is unequivocally no. I don't know where to even go. I don't know where to go from there. Other than a lot of the issues I know we're facing, and this is going to segue into kind of my next area or discussion of topic, and that is, maybe the two-party system is just an epic failure. I think it is. Absolutely an epic failure. Our politicians, who are usually just puppets, controlled by the string masters that are the elitists in our society who do things like this. Now, I'm going to go ahead and lead out a little bit of the last mission for the military that I was on. And we worked very closely with a very specific agency that is tasked with securing our nation's borders. We won't say its name, though. While I was doing that mission, I frequently traveled in and out of other places besides the United States in a very, very tactile and combat-related mission. And we weren't down there stopping people from coming into this country or making illegals return to their country or whatever you want to call it. We didn't do any of that. Neither did the Border Patrol. We weren't even stopping drugs all that much. We were stopping trafficking, specifically the trafficking in little girls under the age of 14. Now, I don't know the exact numbers because I was not in all places all the time, but we were getting children spanning from, their origins in Mexico all the way as far south as the far-ended tip of Chile, who were being trafficked into the United States. I think the oldest ones that we found were, 15. 15 years old was the oldest that we rescued out of these trucks. Train cars, the floor of vans and vehicles, and had been there for weeks in their own filth, barely fed. They were being trafficked into the United States, not out of. Nobody that we caught was being trafficked out of this country to other countries. No, these children were being trafficked from their homes to be sex slaves or sex workers in the United States. Some of them were going to Canada. That tells me that there is a systemic problem of perverts in this country, enabled by their greedy, money-hungry, powerful government to be allowed into this country. They steal these children from their homes, sometimes pay their families, which is equally as fucking gross, to be shipped like cattle to the United States and sold off to some old pervert to be used until they're no longer valuable. Often, these girls, ages 6 to 15, are going to be used until they're about 19 years old. And then they're discarded like garbage. And they often end up in the streets of major metropolitan cities, living off of our government systems, barely. And they go into prostitution because that's all they know. They were literally sold into sex slavery to some autocratic white jerk. And that's their life. And now they're too old. They're no longer attractive to these perverts, so they get rid of them. They throw them to the streets. They don't care what happens to them. They never did in the first place, so they wouldn't be buying their brides. That is what we combated every day for a year and 6 months. And the numbers of people that we rescued are off the charts. It wasn't like, oh, we got 3 this month, or like, oh yeah, we got 1. We saved 1 little girl this year. No, it was daily. And the daily numbers exceeded 10 a day for 409 days, nonstop. The ways that we caught the traffickers got ever more creative. So here's the issue. It doesn't matter how much our government spends sending people like me and thousands of other uniformed officials to the border, or other countries for that matter. It's never going to stop it, because so long as there is a demand, someone is going to supply. That is the reality of what's going on. There's a lot of people on the left who want to run their mouths about, oh, the only reason that they're down there is to stop illegals from finding a better life in this country. You know how many illegals we stopped while I was down there? 1. And that's because that person was convicted of murder in their home country. We're like, no, you're going back. 1. No, we were down there specifically going after the traffickers. And boy, there are shitloads of them. Endless numbers of these people who are paid huge sums of money, all U.S., all non-denominational, all unmarked. And some of the things that we were tying this back to, I'm not even allowed to talk about. I'll never be allowed to talk about it. And it's terrifying. It's terrifying. And what's worse is assuming that these little girls, or boys in a lot of cases, live long enough to be tossed out like garbage. The life that they're going to have after that happens is in so many ways worse. No one will ever accept them. The suicide rate amongst sex trafficked people is near 85%. Rightfully so. I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine living through that. I just couldn't. There's no way. And yet there are thousands a month who are trafficked into the United States, Mexico, Canada, from other parts of South America, who are trafficked into this country from Thailand, China, Japan, the Philippines, every single day. It's not just coming from South America, folks. We've got child trafficked individuals on the West Coast right now by the tens of thousands who are here from Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, ripped away from their families violently, sometimes watch their families get murdered in front of them, and then thrown into a cargo container, stuck on a ship for 66 days or longer, and never see the light of day the whole time. And then, thanks to the wonderful bullshit that happened in our ports in Southern California, stuck out at sea, anchored for months. And they never live. They never live long enough to make it off that ship. They starve to death. Or they die because they're literally resting in their own feces. And then when the person who captains the ship realizes that their valuable cargo that they paid a lot of money for is dead, they dump the container overboard. So these wonderful, beautiful souls of children who were taken away from their families violently, often treated like shit the entire time that they're being transported to their new owners, were given a unceremonial burial at sea, where they'll never be found, and no evidence will ever be given. My counterparts on the West Coast during that 400 plus day mission would call back with their updates. And I thought I had a bad day. No. But you know what? It doesn't stop there. Here in our own country, for those who are watching from the United States, I can't speak about other countries because I don't live in other countries. But here in the United States, it happens too. You have indigenous natives who are ripped away from their families, indoctrinated in Christian white churches, stripped of their heritage and their nationality, abused, beaten, and sometimes murdered just for being who they are. Nobody does shit about that either. This is the kind of thing that happens all the time. It happens all of the time. Foxy on Twitch said, we have a high rate of indigenous children being kidnapped. Yes, okay, so right there. Yes. Much to my point. This goes on all of the time. Right here in our own backyard. This isn't happening in Cambodia. This isn't happening in Myanmar, Poland, Austria, or other countries that we may have never been to. No, this is happening in Oklahoma. This is happening in Arkansas. This is happening in Minnesota, West Virginia, upstate New York. The cases are scattered amongst all the reservation lands in the United States, even here in Texas. Children are being stolen from their homes, indoctrinated, whitewashed, and then sent out into society, stripped of their identity and their history. Never to see their parents or their family again. All of it unwilling. And for what? To what end? Make good white voters? Stop the overpopulation of peoples you don't like? Who knows? Let's see here. We got Unsolved Mysteries 2 on Twitch. Said that has happened since the 1800s. Indigenous people being forced or kidnapped from their villages and forced to get rid of their heritages. You're absolutely correct, Unsolved Mysteries. Yes, you are. That happens way more than people realize, and it's been going on a long ass time. Since the destabilization period after the end of the Civil War, secretly there have been people in very high-ranking positions in our government and the Confederate government who seek to annihilate the existence of indigenous peoples entirely And it wasn't until we hit the stability period, after like 25 years after the Civil War ended, that someone put a stop to that shit, at least mildly. And they did a terrible job. They did an awful job. But what I see very often is a very common thread amongst all of these things. Governments. Governments and their ability to sway. I got one question that came in from YouTube from a Robert Butterfinger. Do I think biological males should be in women's sports? You're going to have to rephrase your question. Because your question, at its face value, makes no sense. So come back and try again. The reality is that these things continue to happen despite all the laws we try to pass and all of society's pressures to make it end. Well, you see, we could have easily made all of these things end a very long time ago. The problem is, there's a lot of people who are in power, our elitist overlords, that use the very laws we create to their advantage. They know that they don't have to abide by them. They know that they don't have to follow the laws, but they can definitely force everybody else they don't like or that they don't side with to follow their laws. This next video I think makes a good point. It's a skit. Now, I follow this gentleman because more often he makes good points. So I, for those that are watching, have never identified as a Republican, and I have never identified as a Democrat. I despise both parties. The Republican Party hasn't been useful since probably, well, when they lost and got their asses handed to them in 1913. They stopped being of value almost entirely at that point. And I've never liked the Democratic Party because they're useless and exceedingly racist, and historically shows that they are. Both are power hungry, both are money hungry, and both pass laws to suit their elitist understanding. So really, Republicans and Democrats are two sides of the same coin, all of which pushes ever so fervently forward towards a total oligarchy, which I'm against. I am a libertarian. And I think when I get the questions, and I often do, what is a libertarian and what makes them different or better, there's so many things that I could talk about. I could spend an entire 5 series of episodes discussing nothing but libertarianism. But this next skit that I'm going to show everyone does a pretty good job of that. So take a listen, watch if you can see it, and let me know what you think. Either leave a comment, ask a question. Again, I'm here to address your questions live. This is our clip show, so let's have fun with it.
Hi there, I'm the federal government. Hi, I'm a nameless character that represents somebody who has never heard of the government or the social contract. I just wanted to run a few things by you just so you know how things work in civilized society. Sure thing. First things first, do you have a job? I do. I sharpen pencils for a living. Cool. Do they pay you pretty well? I'd like to think so. Why do you ask? All right, great. I'm going to go ahead and take 25 to 40% of that income from you. Why would you do that? Well, in order to pay for the stuff that you use that we own, you have to chip in. It's only fair, right? I guess, but what if I don't use it? That's perfectly fine. We're still going to need you to pay, though. That doesn't seem fair. I'll just use my own stuff so I'm not using yours. That way I can keep my money. No can do, Kimosabi. Our stuff is everywhere, and we don't allow anyone else to make our stuff. You sound more like a monopoly than anything else. Actually, we break up companies that we think might turn into monopolies. Well, now it just sounds like you're destroying your competitors. We are. So no matter what, I have to give you my money. Correct. And what if I refuse to pay? Well, then we'll just have you rot in prison after we ruin your life, unless, of course, we decide to end your life, and obviously prison is out of the question. However, we will go after your children for the taxes you still owe. None of that sounds fair. or morally just in the slightest. Well, that's because you've never heard of the social contract. What's the social contract? It's a contract that states that you agree to give up a certain set of freedoms in exchange for security and safety. I never signed this contract. Where can I find a copy of it? In Imagination Land. So it's not real. It's implied. Yeah, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
All very valid points. Now, that pretense at the end is what our government has been using quite effectively since the mid to late 1800s to force people to do what they want you to do. Now, if the blazingly white version of this video that you just watched is not convincing enough for you, let's use a different example that I've used in the past. Now, this is a very, very blue state. It's Delaware. In Delaware, the United States government went after, with the state's own convictions, a black couple for back taxes. What were these back taxes, you might ask? $751. $751 of back owed income taxes that they neglected to disclose on their tax return. $751. Now, to me, that doesn't sound like a lot of money. To this couple, maybe it was. I don't know. But if I were the size of the U.S. government, $751, I think I could do just fine waiting on this couple to pay it. Not that they should have had to anyway, but for the sake of argument, did the United States government wait? No, they did not. They assessed fees, interest, all kinds of things, to the point where that $751 turned into $30,000 or $40,000. Remember, 751 of which was the original amount of taxes owed. The rest was fees and interest and penalties that the IRS loves to charge. Well, now it's a felony. So the IRS wasn't going to keep waiting. No, the IRS sent in the big dogs, got the state's district attorney in Delaware to go after this couple. Had the police do a no-knock raid on their apartment, who then shot this couple to death. Making a good point to this person's video. If they can't put you in jail forever, then they're just going to end your life. Because you're not paying them their homage. So you're no longer useful to them. So yeah, the police during this no-knock raid killed this couple over $751 in back owed income taxes. But not to be outshined or outdone, the U.S. government is like, well, we can't stand for this and we still need our money. So they went after their 3 children and said, because your parents were derelicts and didn't pay their $751 plus penalties, interest, and fees, and then had to be basically murdered over it, now you will pay all of this. And because you're a little more modern than your parents were, yeah, we're going to go ahead and put a lien on all of your bank accounts. We're going to go ahead and put a lien on all of your savings accounts. And then we're going to put a lien on all of your shit until we feel we've gotten our money back. I said, or you can go find you a pearly white lawyer down there in Dover. And yeah, pay that lawyer untold amounts of money to handle this for you. Yeah, that actually happened. So this person's come back with their question. I'm going to address it for you folks. So Robert Butterfinger goes on to ask, do you think humans with XY chromosomes should be in sports competing with humans with, I'm going to assume that's supposed to be XX chromosomes. That's not what he, but yeah. Yes, I do, Robert. You want to know why? Because 11% of biological females with female parts and everything have XY chromosomes. They're called intersex people. So yes, I do think they can. Biological male and biological female is a very muddy term, Robert, and I'm going to put this out there so that you are educated. I was born XXY. I'm biologically neither. But I also had androgynous sex organs. The doctors assigned me what they thought was best and most functional. And you know how they made the decision, Robert, to assign me the sex organs I had? Which hole I paid out of. So they took away everything else. That occurs so frequently in humanity that we outnumber redheads. So yes, it is not up to your chromosomes to determine whether or not you can compete in a sport. It should be based on hormone levels and physical ability. Robert asked, I'm claiming 11%. What are my sources? Robert, I would point you to the Intersex Society of North America and the massive medical and scientific studies that they've not only gone through, but published. It's a good source of information. You should definitely check it out. Now, back to our issue at hand as far as government imperialism and then my identity as a libertarian. Hi, Midnight. Thank you for joining us. The government needs to get out of people's business. And because we don't have a society that has allowed the government to shrink small enough where it no longer can affect your decision making on a daily basis, this is what allows extremists, zealots, to force their agenda on other people. So let's say you're a Democrat and you're really mad because the Republicans and the GOP are forcing the religious make-believe nonsense down your throat, and you can't seem to escape it. It's not necessarily the religious extremists or the religious people who are doing this to you. It is your government that is allowing it. It is your government and its elitist controllers, whoever is in power and has the most money at the moment, that enables that kind of bullshit to happen in the first place. Let's say that you're a conscientious conservative GOP straight ticket evangelical nutjob. And you're angry because the public school system allows teachers to talk to your children about being gay. Oh, how terrible. And you're mad. Well, I would key back on the term public school. It's a publicly government-run and funded school system. And yes, the government will ultimately control what goes on in that school. I don't like public schools. I think public schools are stations for indoctrination, and it swings based on whoever is in control of your state and the president at the time. Since most schools rely very heavily on funding from the U.S. Department of Education. So yeah, it's going to change every single time Congress and the president change. The education in our public schools is no longer about education. It has now become about what is more societal and politically accurate at the moment. That's not education. Science does not follow politics. Science does not give a shit about your political opinions. I would point to Robert Butterfinger. Science don't give a shit about you or your opinions or whatever made up facts that you want to use. It makes no difference. Math does not care about politics or societal pressure. No matter where you go in the frickin' universe, this plus this will always equal this. That's how math works. Technology advances by those two things: science and math. Engineering, same, requires science and math. Medical fields and technology, same, science and math. And yet, when you look at our public school records, some of these kids graduating high school the last 10 years are so behind on math and science. It's pitiful. It is absolutely pitiful. When you have an entire group, nay, a generation of people who think that intersex people are like unicorns and they don't exist except on books and paper, well, guess what, fucker? Here I am. We do exist. We're everywhere. We, in fact, by the variations of intersex peoples there are, outnumber, in fact, natural redheads. And then as far as transgender people, we are far more frequent than most people think. Maybe not so much as the intersex population, but it's estimated, the last reports that came out, which would include both publicly out transgender people and those that they're estimating based on standard population who would be in the closet, transgender individuals might make up somewhere between 7 and 19% of human beings on this planet. It's hard to know exactly which because it is a fearful society that we live in, and there are a great number of transgender people who continue to live in the closet. I don't blame them. I see what goes on in the world. The good news is I've gone through enough military training and I've gone through my life living the way I want to. I don't fear the ignorance. I don't fear the stupid. I train and teach the ignorant, and I defend myself justly against the stupid. Now, I am moving. I currently live in the hill country of Texas, and I enjoy Texas. Texas is a beautiful state. All of it is a beautiful state. The Republican strongholds as well as the Democratic ones. Gorgeous. I love Austin. I love San Antonio. I tolerate Houston. I'm not a fan of Dallas. I'm just not. But I've been every corner of this state, and I love it. I really do. I'm not moving out of fear. I love Corpus Christi, yes. Was stationed at Corpus Christi Naval Air Station for a little bit. I'm moving because I'm just tired of the fight. And I'm definitely tired of losing the fight. Because the problem with your governments, and why I side so heavily as a libertarian, is that when crybabies and hissy fitters don't get their way, like Governor Abbott, when your electorate, that is the Senate and the House of Representatives in your state, vehemently slaps you back down in your chair and says, no, you are not going to pass this egregiously stupid law that's only point is to basically ruin the lives of innocent people, and then you throw a big temper tantrum like the big crybaby you are, and instead make an executive action that does not require congressional oversight. You just decree grooming your children who are transgendered is abuse. And therefore, we're going to send CPS to steal your kids, stick them in a home where they'll be sexually assaulted, beaten, and abused, have all of their crap stolen. Probably, I wouldn't put it past the governor, throw them in some conversion therapy while they're at it, and then fine these parents for the rest of their lives as, well, child abusers. But remember, it's all about the children. We must save the children. When you take those kinds of steps as an elected official, where you prove how much of a giant sissy crybaby you are when you don't get your way, that you're going to pass an executive action so terrible that you are actively trying to destroy somewhere around 13,000 families' lives with fines, jail time, judicial system issues, and then sticking these poor children in homes that will ultimately destroy those kids. Yeah, It's time for this young lady to move on and go somewhere where shit like that doesn't happen. It's sad. It is absolutely sad. And it makes no sense. But this is what we vote for, folks. Every time we go to the polls and we vote the two-party systems, Republicans or Democrats, this is what we get. We get extremism on both sides. We get liberties being stolen from us, freedom being eroded away ever so slowly. And I'm tired of it. I agree with the GOP. I agree with the Republicans. Taxation is bad. Property taxes is bad. Income tax is bad. I don't think that we should be paying money for things that, well, we don't like or don't agree with. It's our money. I don't believe there's a social contract. But here's the thing. The Republicans talk a good game when they're out there in the public, but when you go look at their voting history, they will vote to increase tax spending just as fast as a Democrat will. So they're liars. It took me a long time to discover the Libertarian Party. It did. And when I did, because I just abstained from voting, I wouldn't participate. It's like voting between two bowls of shit. Except like you're just voting on which bowl stinks the least. Well, I'm sorry, it's still shit. Like it's just shit. I don't want to vote for shit. So when I discovered the Libertarian Party and the people who were trying to run on that platform, I realized, wow, society is perfectly capable of functioning minus the ever-growing pressure of an elitist oligarchical government, to which we all live in now. I don't care if you're in the United States, Mexico, Canada, the United Kingdom. It's all an elitist-run oligarchy. The United Kingdom and countries in the in the European areas at least don't try to sugarcoat or hide it. Now, yeah, sure, the UK calls it a monarchy. It's not. It's an oligarchy. It's ruled by the elite. They even have a name for it. They call it nobility, because only nobles can hold office. So you mean the elitists who think they're better than me and they know best how to run my life? That's an oligarchy. Well, here in the United States, we call it the political class. Delaware. Peaches. They're just nobles. Same shit they deal with in the United Kingdom. We're no better. So I'm going to go and answer a few more questions, and then we're going to go into the funnier, lighter side of my show. And that's how we're going to end the show. I like to end things on a brighter note if I can, just because it's better that way. And I figure, what better way to have a brighter end of my show than some ridiculous military humor, because sometimes I miss it. I do miss the constant military humor. It's funny. It is funny, but we'll get to that later. Going back to our questions, I'm going to bring a few of these up. Let's see here. This one is from Unsolved Mysteries. Thank you again for posting. Interesting fact, during the 1980s, when many black Americans were getting hit with heavy taxes by the IRS, many black Americans had served life sentences and their property burned to the ground. Absolutely accurate. Now, that was in its heyday between 1984 and 1989. However, it did not start in the 80s. It actually started during the hippie revolution and really started basically around 1968. This is when that was getting really, really bad. Now, if you're meaning as far as the original taxation, as far as the Emancipation Proclamation and everything else from the 1800s, that's a different story. If you're looking at modern IRS, that's very, very different, because the IRS did not exist in the 1800s. Most people don't know this. The IRS and the Federal Reserve, the central bank in the United States, did not exist prior to 1913. There was no income tax in the 1800s. There was a state collectible excise tax. There was a purchase tax that was instituted by most of the states at the time to fund the war effort during the Civil War. When the war was over and the war debt was paid, barely, taxation stopped. Everyone went back to what they were doing before. But all good points, Unsolved Mysteries. Thank you. So Robert Butterfinger states, they do exist, not nearly the prevalence rate that you claim. Imperial peer-reviewed data at 0.016%. I don't know where you're getting your data. I would say cite your sources. Because no, that's not accurate. But thank you for playing. Goes on to also say, I'm not against being transgender. I'm against men unfairly taking advantage of women's sports. Name one time, Robert, that a man has unfairly taken advantage of a woman in any professional sport. One time. Go. Let's see here. Moving right along. Unsolved Mystery says, I love Arizona's Wild West towns as well as Texas's old Wild West towns. Yes, I do too. They are a really fun visit. Anyone who's watching on TikTok or the other platforms, don't hate the land the state exists in. There's so many beautiful things in New Mexico, Arizona, even Oklahoma, Arkansas. Most people don't know how beautiful Arkansas actually is. If you've never been to Rose, Arkansas, outside of the massive meth trading that goes on there, Rose is gorgeous. It's beautiful up there. There's so many beautiful things in a lot of different states. Every state has unique beauty that we must appreciate because, you know, it's for us to enjoy. Just don't stay. Like, I like California. I love Napa Valley. I love shopping in San Francisco. I can't stand LA. I don't care how queer LA is. I just can't stand it. I can't. The traffic, the noise, the smell. I don't know what it is, but I don't like it. So, Robert goes, be who you want, do as you do, as long as you're not infringing on others. Robert, that's the smartest thing you said or asked this entire time. Exactly. That is the libertarian standpoint, Robert. Be who you want and do as you do, so long as your actions do not infringe upon the rights of others to do the same. I will say our founding fathers did write one exceptionally beautiful document, and that was the Declaration of Independence. It is a gorgeous document, so well articulated, because basically what it was the bitch slap heard round the world. It wasn't just written to King George. It was written to every oligarch, every monarch, every despot in the world simultaneously as a notice that the peoples of this world don't have to take your shit. It was a call for everyone around the world, whether they lived in France, the Australian penal colonies, wherever. You as a human being are born. You were born, and therefore you have these rights. They are not granted. Nobody gives them to you, and therefore nobody can take them from you. And you have the right in this very specific order to life, liberty, and property. We all have the right to live. Nobody has the right to take that from us. We all have the right to do as we please. Liberty. Live as we please, love as we please, pray as we please, without interference from anybody else. These are very important things. And your right to live as you please and love as you please should never impede upon someone else's rights. I may be trans. I'm attracted to men and women and non-binary people. But if there's a woman out there who is not attracted to me, I can't force my love on that person. It is her liberty to not love me in return or reciprocate my feelings. Simple shit like that. Zofia, I will post the links in the description of this video on my website, cyberjynx.me. You can go there after this video publishes for on-demand viewing, and the links to a lot of this stuff will be in the description of the video. I hope that helps. Thank you for watching, by the way. And now, last but least, property. We are all endowed with the right to self-ownership and the ownership of things that we want. But it's at the bottom of the list, folks. It's at the bottom of the order for a very specific reason. My right to life supersedes your right to my property. If by kicking me out of my home is going to hurt me or kill me in some way, then you don't get to. But here's the thing, I see this violated all the time. Sophia was asking about the situation with the couple in Delaware who ultimately lost their lives over back-owed taxes. Their life was ended for money. They committed no crime. They hurt nobody. Ended. Now, that's the nice whitewashed version of the story. The reality is their lives were ended because they were black. But it happens far more frequently than any of us would ever care to admit. But still, the rights, and there are only 3 that we have, all human beings. I don't give a shit if you are a citizen of China and you live under the communist market-driven economies of that country, or if you're a citizen of Spain. It makes no difference. You're human. And because you're human, you have these rights. Nobody gets to tell you whether you get to live and die. Nobody. Nobody gets to tell you how you get to live your life. Now, if the choices you make to live your life physically impact or hurt other people, then yes. And you have the right to own shit. If I go to the store and I buy a sandwich and I give them the money and they accept the money for that sandwich, that's my sandwich. You cannot take it from me, no matter how badly you want it. It's mine. Now, if you do steal my sandwich, I don't get to shoot you because you stole my sandwich. Because your life is more important than the fucking sandwich or my ability to own it. But you did violate my liberty and my property. I can take you to court and make you compensate me for that sandwich. That's how our system, that's how the world is supposed to work. And yet it doesn't. Our government does not allow it. Foreign governments do not allow it. And when they band together and they create world laws, like the UN, where they just enforce their oligarchy on everybody, we all suffer. If you think the world's power struggle for the LGBTQ plus community is bad now, imagine fighting it on a global scale. Because that's what's coming, brothers and sisters and non-binary siblings. If we allow our government to continue to take more power because we keep voting for them to have it. So stop. You don't have to vote for the GOP, and you don't have to vote for the Democrats. You can vote for someone other than that. I do. I don't consider it a wasted vote. I don't consider it throwing my vote out. I consider every single time a Republican or a Democrat gets elected into a seat of power, that's a wasted vote. Because if you think that those people even give a flying fuck about your thoughts and feelings or your particular flavor of Sky Fairy, they don't. They don't. They just lie to you. So I got a question from K. Etarian. If I break into your house to get that sandwich, I have the right to defend my house, correct? Actually, no, you don't. No, you don't. If the person breaking into your home is threatening your life, then you do. Then you do. rest assured, if someone comes into your house unarmed and you shoot them, you are going to be the one that goes to jail in all 50 states. If that person is threatening your life, if they have a knife, if they have a gun, if you feel like your life is in mortal danger if you do not act to protect yourself, yes, you have the right to defend your life from outward attacks. But no, far too often have I seen in the news where someone gets their bike stolen and then that person who stole the bike gets shot in the back while fleeing. You didn't protect your property. You just murdered somebody. That's all you did. So, no, that's not how this works. Now, back to some of these other questions. Let's see here. Foxy Ray said, my sister's partner is a trans female. She is in the closet outside of our family because she's scared. Absolutely. There's my co-host. Hi, Daphne.
Hi.
I can understand that, Foxy. Yeah, that's not uncommon. I mean, I know lots of people who are in fact trans who are presenting in the wrong gender and they're afraid to come out. They're terrified, actually. So I feel for your partner. I really do. The Unsolved said the judicial system is already backwards. It's getting worse by the generation. So what you've described, Unsolved, is called generational oppression. This is something our founding fathers, well, really tried to fight. They absolutely did. They wrote the Constitution, and they wrote it with the ability to amend it, because they knew that what they wrote wasn't perfect, and that they knew, most importantly, that whatever applied to them back then wasn't necessarily going to apply to their grandchildren or their grandchildren's grandchildren. They allowed the Constitution to be amended by a constitutional Congress so that we as a people in this nation never had to suffer generational oppression. They also codified it that even the states had to allow this as well. But yes, our legal system is definitely backed up. The Castle Doctrine does not allow you, in any of the states that have the Castle Doctrine, to shoot someone sight unseen. So no, you will still go to prison for murder, even under the Castle Doctrine. Robert Butterfinger makes the statement, anyway, I wish you the best, and that's my take. Well, Robert, I wish you the best as well. Thank you for watching, and thank you for participating. May the sun always shine upon you, and then you always have a fair wind. Caffeine makes another one. Let's see here. The internets seem to suggest that intersex prevalence is approximately 1.7%, including a handful of genetic chromosomal conditions that might not be related to sex organs. Not sure what you were referencing with the 11% statistics. So, again, I would point you to the Intersex Society of North America and all of the intersex conditions that exist. Most commonly, which are your chromosomal conditions, so genetic conditions of intersex, can be as many as one in 500 children born in the United States, in North America, might have it. That's pretty significant. Let's see here. Unsolved says there is an entire riot over voting rights of African Americans in Florida. And with the way DeSantis is going nowadays, I wouldn't be surprised if another happened. Let's see, on November 2nd, 1920, and I cannot pronounce that, I'm sorry, the black community was destroyed. So I do remember reading about that, Unsolved Mysteries. I don't know all the ins and outs of it. I will definitely go and do some more research on it, though. But that's not the only place in this country that that happened. There were many communities, particularly in the South, and some in the North, where entire black communities were decimated to prevent them from banding together and voting. Let's see, Florida does have a stand your ground law, so does Texas. Let's see, caffeine, that is not what I learned on The Wire. The Wire. Not a really good. Yeah, no. Foxy, my sister's partner. Okay, sister's partner. Thank you for the correction. Let's see here. We got some questions. If someone breaks into my house through a locked door or window, I have every right to defend my house. That's what security systems and alarms are for. And once again, I will point to you, whether you feel like you have the right to defend your home and that right is to then murder the person trying to get into it, that's on you at the end of the day. You do you, boo. But I promise you, no matter how many good legal defenses you've purchased the subscriptions through the NRA to get, you are still going to go to prison for murder. There has to be a justifiable reason. And someone kicking in your front door may not be a justifiable reason in the court of law for you to shoot them. We fight for the same things when police do it to us, and yet they still get away with it. So, no. You're not a member of the NRA. Well, okay, good. Good. Or bad, I don't know. That's all on you. I'm a gun owner just like a lot of people are. I'm military, for crying out loud. I have shitloads of them. But I have actually shot people in the line of duty. And I'm here to tell you there's nothing glorified about it. There's nothing fun about it. It's awful. It's the worst feeling you'll ever have, actually. Compounded when the person you shot doesn't make it. It's the most awful thing anyone could ever do, because killing someone is kind of a violation of nature. We as human beings, we're not meant to kill each other. I would have a very difficult time shooting anybody that just barges into my door. Now, I've also been trained. I know what to look for. I know when someone is possibly armed. And if they're armed, then yes, they now pose a direct threat against the life of my children, my spouse, and myself. And yes, I will execute them judiciously to make sure they don't bring harm to me or my family. But I'm here to tell you that that is such a rare occurrence. It almost never happens, ever. Now, I understand there are states that have castle doctrine or stand your ground laws, but I've also watched multiple people, white people, get prosecuted and imprisoned for decades for defending their home because they shot a 15-year-old kid who had a toothbrush. It didn't stand up in court, folks, and it won't. So, I'm sorry. It just is what it is. I believe what the Founding Fathers put out. Life always comes first. And yes, we do have the right to defend our own lives, but we actually need to be defending those lives. Once again, I'm going to go ahead and plug myself here. You are watching Trans Confessions, a very queer journey, where we discuss all kinds of things, whether it's political issues, LGBTQ plus issues and activism, gaming, cyberculture, travel, beauty tips, whatever. Sky is the limit. You can watch me live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday during the season at 11:30 a.m. Central Time, or you can watch me on demand from my website, cyberjynx.me, anytime you want. I stream on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter, and sometimes I stream on TikTok, like today. Now, TikTok's not a very good platform, unfortunately, because it does not integrate into my dashboard, so you guys can't see all the interactive fun stuff that I'm putting up on the screen, which includes the videos. So if you get a chance, go to my website, follow my social media profiles like YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, or Twitter, and then you can catch me live and interact through those. Now, let's see here. I'm going to post my website for everyone watching on the other platforms. Of course, TikTok, you can't see it. So pause it if you need to. There's your website. Write it down. Very easy to remember. cyberjynx.me or cyberjynx.me. Going back to some of our comments and our questions. Caffeine said, plug Twitch. I always plug Twitch. Now, my Twitch handle is libertarian_girl, girl spelt with a U. But again, if you go to my website, you can find my Twitch link there and you can follow me quite easily. Now, we also have a Discord server. So you can find the link to my Discord server, which will invite you, and it allows you not only to see a lot of the same stuff that you're able to see on my other social media profiles, but because I own the Discord server and I use age verification, there are other more fun things you can see too. And we'll just leave it at that. Now, let's see here. Oh, Foxy Ray said, I'll definitely be back. Well, thank you, Foxy, very much for joining me in the first place. I always enjoy the new people who like to come watch. It's fun to interact with each and every one of you. I do hope my Twitch following does continue to grow. I think it's phenomenal. Now, the last things we're going to leave off with, just because these are funny, are a few military funny moments. Just humor. This is a very quick one, so it's going to go by fast. For the folks who are on TikTok, if you are military and you like a little bit of military humor, definitely follow Angry Cops. He is funny. He seems to be nonpartisan, which is good. At least his content is very military, dark, but wholesome nonetheless. So have a watch and enjoy.
I be doing weird shit when I'm alone.
So, you guys couldn't hear everything. It was a very quick clip. But it was basically talking about when officers walk through military enlisted barracks and they see some of the things the enlisted folks are doing in those barracks. And making a quick quip about, well, yeah, they do weird shit when they're alone. It reminds me of a story when I was living in the barracks as a young enlisted service member. And some of just the creepy shit. So like the day rooms was a very common place for just debaucherous activity. And I don't even want to, I know when we lived in the shittier barracks, and they were pretty bad. I mean, oof. Some of the stuff, like they would smoke in the barracks, it would just be acrid. It would be horribly acrid in that bed, just like, ugh, constantly. It was funny. It was like walking into a different world, too. So sure, when you had random barracks inspections where the officers and the senior non-coms start walking through to do their inspections, yeah, it was never really a way to prepare for that. It was just like, oops. So that was basically a video poking fun at that. I have a lot of fond memories of the military, and it's kind of a sad moment for me to think that I will be retiring officially this year. I'm done. 20 plus years, and I can finally hang my hat up and say, we're good to go. And basically hand the reins off to somebody else and say, now it's your turn. And I think my next episode, episode 23, is going to be specifically about being transgendered openly in military service and what that means for a lot of people. And hopefully be able to answer a lot of your questions regarding that, being openly trans in the military. Let's see here. Checking to see if I have any other questions or comments real quick. It looks like no. That's okay though. Let's see. Fox said, yep, you can always check this out. Obviously, Foxy, go to my website and you can join our Discord server. It's a lot of fun. We do have good conversations. And if you guys want to ask me off-screen questions, Discord's really the best place to do it, or shooting me an email. I do read my emails, folks. You are allowed to send them, all 463 I get a day. I do read them. I usually read them in the evening, so if you want a response, you're probably not going to get one until like 10 p.m. because that's when I tend to go through them all. So, oh, cool, pianist. That's awesome. Whoa. Got a big long comment from Tommy Dan. I don't think I can post that on my screen, Tommy. I do apologize. Mostly because it would take up the whole damn screen. Right. So I'm not going to do that, but okay. I can't even read that. There's HIPAA violations in that. You probably shouldn't be posting that stuff, honestly, just because it does violate HIPAA a lot. So I'm going to have to go back on Facebook and probably delete your entire comment because you also doxed people, and that's not a good idea. So I would like to thank all of my viewers, absolutely, for joining me today. Again, I am your host, Jynx. My co-host, Daphne, who you saw briefly walk in the back of the screen, was not able to be with us today. I am so grateful that all of you had an opportunity to join me and all the great comments and questions that you had. I will have this video up for on-demand viewing on my website, probably within the hour, and I will definitely link the websites of all the information that I can in the description for that video. I want to say thank you. Thank you again. It's always a blessing to be able to have these great shows with all these great people. Even the people who may not necessarily like the things I have to say, I even appreciate you coming on the show. You give me fodder to fire back with, and you keep me on my toes, so I think it's a valid reason. Until next time, folks, will be Wednesday. We'll do our next show on Wednesday, and I want to make one more statement at the end of the show so you guys understand. Season 1 is ending. So next Friday will be my last episode for Season 1. Season 2 will not kick off until the first Monday of August. Why? Well, I'm having my surgery on the 25th of April, so they're going to bust my face and make me look ridiculous for several months. Not really what I would consider camera worthy, and I'm probably not going to be very much in the mood for talking to anybody because of that. That being said, I also have a life. I'll be moving. I'll be going back to the beach because that's where I want to be. So the next time you guys catch me live in Season 2, I'll be broadcasting from a beautiful, summery, beachy, Caribbean weather. So, thank you again for joining, and until next time, I love every single one of you. Have a blessed, blessed day. All right, we're going to end our show. Bye, everyone.